I'm a 29-year-old woman, and until 2 months ago, I was supposed to get married to my fiancé Liam. We were together for 3 years, engaged for 14 months, and had our wedding planned for late summer in Charleston. I'd already picked the flowers, picked the dress, and even started working with the band on our first dance song. Everything was locked in, from the caterers to the seating chart. My friends joked that I had it all figured out, and honestly, I thought I did too. Liam wasn't just a boyfriend to me, he was family, or so I thought. His parents treated me well enough, but the real bond was with his cousin Delia. She was loud, bold, always had a drink in her hand and an opinion to match. We clicked instantly. Delia was the one who took me out for drinks when Liam and I had our first big fight. She was the one who helped me pick out my wedding dress. And she was the one I cried to when planning stress got too heavy. I introduced her to people as my future cousin-in-law, but really she felt like the sister I never had. That illusion shattered one night while Liam was in the shower. I was using his laptop to send myself a copy of our vendor spreadsheet when his text notifications popped up. The messages were from someone saved as D. At first I assumed it was one of his college friends, maybe someone from work. But then I saw the actual texts. They weren't just flirty. They were detailed, intimate, full of inside jokes I didn't understand, and what if fantasies I couldn't unsee. I scrolled up and felt my whole body lock up. The messages went back for months. I checked the phone, same contact, same conversations. And then I saw a selfie. It was Delia. I waited until he got out of the shower. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I asked one question: how long? He started backpedaling, claiming it was only emotional, that nothing ever happened physically, that she was going through something and he was just being there for her. He tried to spin it as a stupid mistake, some kind of misplaced loyalty. I didn't believe a word of it. I packed my overnight bag, left the ring on the kitchen counter, and didn't look back. By the next day, the wedding was canceled. I contacted every vendor, lost the deposit on the venue, and told my bridesmaids to stand down. Some of them cried more than I did. I didn't have time to process. I just needed to cut the cord fast and clean. What I didn't expect was how quickly Delia took control of the narrative. She told people I overreacted. She insisted nothing ever happened between them, and that I was reading too much into it. She even said Liam confessed everything to me out of guilt, and I twisted it. Within days, Liam's family started splitting into two camps. Some of them texted me to apologize, telling me they didn't condone what happened. Others, especially the ones closest to Delia, doubled down. According to them, it wasn't cheating if there was no physical contact. One of them actually said, "You're really going to call off a wedding over some texts?" My own family wanted to stay neutral. They hated what Liam did, but didn't want to make things worse. I understood, but it made me feel even more alone. Then things took a turn. Delia started posting online. At first, it was subtle. Memes about jealous women and protecting your peace. Then she escalated to TikToks about dodging red flags and how to bounce back after betrayal. She didn't mention names, but it was obvious. The worst part? People believed her. She was funny, charismatic, and knew exactly how to frame things to look like the wounded one. Liam stayed mostly quiet, which made it easier for her to control the story. A week later, Liam's sister Becca, who had once gushed about my bachelorette party, decided to give that slot to Delia. The event that was supposed to be my bridal shower became a healing brunch, hosted in the same rented space. A few mutual friends showed up. One of them texted me after, apologizing. Said it felt weird, like watching someone decorate their house with furniture stolen from a wreck. I tried to ignore it. I deactivated my social media and stayed off my phone. But the screenshots kept finding me. Friends would send them just so I knew. One photo stood out: a cocktail menu from Delia's breakup brunch. Every drink had a theme: red flag, gaslight spritzer, blocked and blessed. I stared at that image for 10 straight minutes. Not because it hurt, but because I realized something. Delia didn't just want to hurt me. She wanted to turn my breakup into entertainment, a storyline, a branding opportunity. She turned the worst moment of my life into a game. And games have rules, which means they also have winners and losers. I decided then and there I wasn't going to play the same game she was. I wouldn't scream, post, or spiral. But I wasn't going to vanish, either. If Delia wanted an audience, she could have one. But this time, I'd be writing the script. A week after Delia's breakup brunch, her social media started to look like a curated documentary about emotional resilience. She posted crying selfies with captions about letting go of what doesn't serve you and walking away from chaos to protect your peace. Then came the reels, long-winded monologues filmed in her car or kitchen, talking about the pain of betrayal and the importance of self-worth. She never used names, but every story she told had enough hints to make it clear who she was talking about. Within days, she launched a podcast called Thorns Therapy. Her intro episode was titled "When Loyalty is a Lie," and the timing wasn't subtle. She spoke in vague metaphors about a man who never saw her for who she was, and a woman who pretended to be family but never truly loved her. I didn't listen to the whole thing, just enough to know that she was twisting every fact to sound like the victim. One of her followers even messaged a mutual friend, saying how strong Delia was for surviving such a toxic triangle. That friend forwarded me the audio clips and a few screenshots without even asking. The worst part was that Delia started getting traction. A local wellness brand featured her as a guest speaker for their Glow Forward campaign. They even gave her a discount code to promote their vitamins and skincare products. That week, my inbox blew up again, more screenshots, more links, more people asking if it was true. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. Liam and I still had legal ties. We had purchased a small house together the year before the engagement, and the paperwork to untangle it was already messy. Then he emailed me. It read like an apology, but every line sounded like it had been combed through by a PR team. He hoped I was well, said he never intended for things to go this far, and hoped we could find closure. I didn't reply. I passed it on to my attorney, who was handling the asset division. As far as I was concerned, that door was sealed shut. The next blow came on a random Tuesday. My cousin messaged me with a link to a new photo shoot Delia had posted. It was a dramatic revenge glow-up album with filtered shots of her twirling in a white dress at sunset, holding a champagne glass and looking off into the distance. I almost ignored it, until I recognized the dress. It was my old wedding gown. I had donated it months ago to a local boutique that helped low-income brides. Apparently, Delia had gotten her hands on it through a contact and used it for her shoot. My cousin confirmed it was mine based on the custom stitching we added under the hem. I reached out to the photographer directly, explained the situation, and mentioned I'd file a copyright complaint if the images weren't taken down. The next day, they were gone. That same night, Delia posted a long caption about bitter women who can't stand to see you shine and accused unnamed people of trying to sabotage her healing process. Her followers flooded the comments with fire emojis and praise for her bravery. I didn't say a word. Instead, I created a folder on my laptop called Documentation and started saving everything: screenshots, clips, and posts, each one time-stamped and labeled. I also set up alerts for her name in case she mentioned me or Liam directly in anything public. Then came Becca. Liam's sister texted me out of nowhere. She said she wanted to help, to clear the air, to bring everyone back to peace. I hadn't spoken to her since the bridal shower drama, and the message felt forced. Too neutral, too careful, like she was trying to fish for details. I replied with a polite thank you and left it at that. A few hours later, she tried calling. I blocked her number. That ended the conversation permanently. A few days later, I met up with my best friend Taryn for coffee. She had been following the situation from the sidelines and pitched an idea I hadn't considered: apply to speak at the Women's Empowerment Conference coming up in the city. Delia had just been announced as one of the headliners. Taryn's suggestion hit like a lightning bolt. Not for revenge, not to throw stones, but because I had something to say, and apparently so did everyone else. That night, I drafted a proposal titled Performative Healing After Betrayal. It was professional, direct, and didn't mention names. I submitted it through the event speaker portal and went to bed without expectations. 2 days later, I got the acceptance email. They offered me a panel spot on the Sunday afternoon slot. Same day as Delia. Different stage. Different message. I booked a facial, picked out a new outfit, and started prepping. This time, no one else would write the story for me. The women's conference kicked off on a Friday afternoon, and by Saturday morning, the venue was packed. I arrived early Sunday for my panel, hair done, outfit sharp, notes in my bag. As I waited backstage, I spotted Delia across the green room. She locked eyes with me and froze for half a second before pasting on a wide smile. Her expression didn't match her eyes. She tried to look relaxed, but the tight grip she had on her coffee cup said otherwise. Her name was listed on the earlier schedule for a session titled Healing Loud, Turning Pain into Purpose. Mine was right after, on the main stage, and the panel was already marked standing room only. People were gathered outside the door before we even started. When I walked out, the applause was loud. Not because they knew me, but because they knew the story. Without me naming names, everyone already knew exactly what had happened. I didn't come to point fingers or spill secrets. I talked about performative healing, about how social media can turn real pain into clickbait. I shared what it looks like when someone weaponizes their growth journey to avoid accountability. I used phrases like emotional exhibitionism and curated vulnerability. The audience nodded. Some filmed on their phones. When I said they stole my heartbreak and sold it for clout, the room went completely silent for a few seconds, then erupted into applause. That line hit harder than I expected. Later that evening, clips from my talk were all over social media. It started with a few Instagram stories. Then someone posted a clip on TikTok with the caption, "This is how you reclaim your story without naming names." Within hours, it had over 80,000 views. My quote started trending in local circles. A few mutual friends reposted it. Delia didn't. Instead, she posted a long, teary-eyed video from her car, talking about how she'd been blindsided by someone she once trusted. She said she wasn't going to name names, but claimed people were twisting her truth and building platforms by tearing others down. The comments were a mix. Some of her loyal followers offered support, but others began asking questions. People wanted details, dates, receipts. And the more she talked, the less sense her timeline made. I stayed quiet. I didn't need to reply. Instead, I sent a message privately to one of her past collaborators. This person had previously hosted Delia on their podcast and was planning a new project with her. I didn't send a long rant, just a brief message with screenshots and dates to provide context. The next day, Delia's name disappeared from the collaborator's upcoming release list. When someone asked about it in the comments, the host replied, "We've chosen to work only with creators who align with our values." That same week, her podcast ratings dropped. People left reviews calling her out for profiting off someone else's pain. One listener pointed out how every episode sounded like a script built from buzzwords with no real accountability. A review that got a lot of attention said, "You can't heal while constantly telling the world how evolved you are. It just feels like a sales pitch." Meanwhile, Liam was losing friends. A few of his longtime buddies unfollowed both him and Delia. One even messaged my best friend Taryn, saying he felt completely misled. Someone else shared an old group photo Delia had posted and wrote, "Amazing how stories change when receipts start showing up." It wasn't just me anymore. People were connecting dots on their own. While Delia tried to hold the story together, I started getting offers. A therapist who hosts a podcast about betrayal recovery reached out and asked if I would be willing to share my experience. It wasn't some clout-chasing show. It was calm, thoughtful, with real conversations and no dramatic editing. I agreed to do one episode. We recorded in person with no notes, no script. Just an open conversation about how betrayal feels when it happens behind closed doors and how social media can twist it into entertainment. The day the podcast went live, Delia posted screenshots of old direct messages between us from 2 years ago. The texts were out of context, conversations from when I was venting about wedding stress and trying to support her during a breakup. She used them to make it look like I was unstable or bitter long before the engagement even ended. A few people commented with support, but more started asking why she kept bringing things up if she was really healing. That was the moment I decided to speak. Once. I posted a short video, less than 2 minutes. No tags, no drama, just a simple message. Healing doesn't mean rewriting the truth, it means learning to live with it. I didn't add hashtags or links. I didn't drag her name into it, but it didn't matter. People knew. And this time, they didn't side with her. By the end of the week, 3 of her old followers had messaged me to say they unfollowed her after seeing the full picture. One of them wrote, "You didn't even need to say much. You let the truth do its job." I didn't respond to any of them. I just saved the screenshots, added them to my folder, and kept moving. 2 weeks after the podcast episode dropped, Delia tried to shift the story again. She posted a carousel on Instagram, clips of her speaking at past events, screenshots of old empowering quotes she'd shared, and a long caption about overcoming betrayal from people closest to you. It would have blended into her usual content if not for what happened in the comments. Someone from her past, an old friend from her college days, commented under the post with one sentence, "You left out the part where you slept with your cousin's fiancé." The comment didn't even tag anyone, but it lit a match. Within minutes, people started replying with shocked emojis, questions, and stories of their own encounters with Delia. Someone posted a screenshot from one of her deleted TikToks. Another said they used to be in her group chat and saw her joke about stealing what other people can't hold on to. The thread got so chaotic that Delia turned off replies entirely and locked down the comment section. She didn't delete the post. She left it up and moved on like nothing happened. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Delia started to spiral on her own. The next few days, she began messaging mutual acquaintances directly. 2 of them, people I'd known for years, sent me screenshots. Delia was trying to convince them that I had cheated first. She claimed I had made up the text messages to cover my own guilt and that Liam only confided in her after I ruined the relationship. It was the same script, slightly rewritten, this time with more desperation. I didn't argue. I just added the screenshots to my folder, labeled with date and context. Every message Delia sent, every twist in her version of events, had a timestamp and source. I wasn't building a case. I was keeping a record. Then something unexpected happened. Liam's cousin Jude reached out. He hadn't taken sides when everything exploded. I hadn't heard from him in months. But now, out of nowhere, he messaged me, asking if we could talk. I agreed to meet in person. It wasn't a setup or a trap. He came alone, no phone recording, no weird energy. He told me Delia had lied to the entire family, claimed I had been having an affair during the engagement, and that Liam was too embarrassed to admit it. According to her, she was just being there for him as a friend. Jude said he never believed all of it, but didn't want to stir up drama. Then he showed me group chat messages from earlier that month, screenshots of Delia telling their cousins she was going to flip the script before the conference and reclaim the spotlight. She even called it her main character moment. I asked him to forward me the screenshots, which he did. They lined up perfectly with her podcast episodes and event appearances. I added everything to my timeline, connecting each claim she made publicly with what she had said privately. It was no longer about feelings. The story wrote itself in her own words. 3 days later, a journalist from a lifestyle magazine contacted me. They had followed the viral clips from the conference and wanted to profile me for a series on digital boundaries and rebuilding after betrayal. I didn't rush the decision. I looked them up, checked their past work, and finally agreed on one condition: no names. The story wouldn't mention Delia, Liam, or anyone from that circle, just a reference to a former close connection. While the interview was in progress, Delia caught wind of it. She started posting stories about media vultures and people who sell their trauma for attention. She added dramatic black and white photos and a caption about choosing silence over spectacle, but the damage had already spread. People remembered her car rant, her fake crying videos, her breakup-themed brunches. The article came out the following week. It focused on reclaiming control in a narrative where someone else tried to define you. It talked about social media's role in shaping perception and how weaponized vulnerability could be more dangerous than open cruelty. The journalist described me as grounded, focused, and not interested in revenge, just truth. The comment section flooded with support. Readers praised the balance. Others started asking bigger questions about influencer culture and how quickly lies can go viral if wrapped in pretty language. Delia tried to clap back with something new: a coaching course. She launched an online program called Reclaiming Your Story, advertising it as a healing course for women who had been silenced, blamed, or erased. The course was $149, came with 6 PDF guides, and promised inner peace in 6 weeks. Only 5 people signed up. One of them left a review saying the content was recycled from her old Instagram captions and that the whole thing felt like a failed brand rep trying to go therapist. The course quietly vanished 2 weeks later. I didn't post, I didn't comment, I didn't celebrate. I just kept updating the folder. Because the game wasn't over, but she had already started losing. It started with a quote on Facebook. Liam's aunt, the one who once cried while calling me the daughter she never had, posted an image that read, "A snake sheds its skin, but it's still a snake." No tags, no caption, just the quote. A few of Delia's friends liked it. Someone from their side commented a snake emoji. It didn't take a detective to figure out who it was aimed at. I didn't respond, just saved a screenshot and added it to the folder with the rest. It wasn't the first passive-aggressive jab from that side of the family. After the article dropped, there had been a slow trickle, cryptic Instagram captions, sudden unfollows, a few private group chats lighting up. One of Delia's cousins even made a TikTok indirectly mocking people who profit off breakups. My friend Taryn had a better idea. Instead of letting rumors twist into a mess, she suggested doing a live QA. Not a public circus, just something on my private account with verified followers only. No names mentioned, just honest answers from my side in a controlled space. We announced it 2 days in advance, and by the time I went live, the room was full. I kept it simple, answered questions about boundaries, digital accountability, and how to rebuild when the people you trusted most became part of the problem. I didn't drag anyone. I didn't even hint. Just facts, timelines, and choices. But someone screen recorded the whole thing. The video landed on TikTok within a few hours, split into clips, each titled with pieces of quotes I'd used. The one that blew up was where I said, "The hardest part isn't when people lie to you, it's when you realize how many of them liked the lie." The comments were nonstop. Hundreds of people stitched the clip, comparing it to situations in their own lives. I didn't repost or interact. I let it run its course. The next morning, Liam's uncle called my father. He left a voicemail accusing me of defamation through implication and warned that the family wouldn't tolerate being painted as villains. What he didn't realize was that my dad is a practicing attorney. He returned the call once, very calmly, and told them if they reached out again, everything would be documented for legal purposes. There were no more calls after that. That same week, Delia's mother posted a photo of her as a little girl sitting in a field, captioned with a long paragraph about loyalty being a forgotten virtue and how easy it is to twist love into a weapon. It got likes mostly from family, but someone commented, "Kind of ironic when your daughter slept with someone else's fiancé." The post vanished less than an hour later. Then came the cease and desist letter. Delia's brand had hired a lawyer to send an official warning, claiming I was sabotaging her business through indirect online commentary. I didn't panic. I sent it straight to my own attorney. He responded with a clean, direct letter pointing out the dozens of Delia's own posts, videos, podcast clips, and quotes clearly referencing me by situation and timeline. He attached screenshots of everything. The response ended with a single line, "We are prepared to continue this in court, if needed." There was no reply. After that, I noticed 3 people unfollowed Delia publicly and tagged me in posts thanking me for giving context. One of them had previously collaborated with her on a giveaway. Another was a micro-influencer who'd once called Delia her mentor. They didn't tag her, just reshared my QA clip and said it helped them see things more clearly. Then Jude sent something that cracked the last layer open. It was an old voice memo Delia had recorded in their cousin group chat. She was laughing in the clip, telling them she had always been curious what would happen if Liam took the bait. She bragged about the attention, the way people would see her as misunderstood and magnetic. She ended the message by saying, "This isn't about him. This is about me flipping the story. Let them hate me. They'll still be watching." Jude told me he hesitated to send it at first, but after everything, he felt people deserved to hear it. He didn't leak it directly, but someone from that group chat had already shared it. The voice memo landed on Reddit, reposted in a thread discussing online manipulation. It spread fast. People picked it apart line by line, comparing it to her podcast quotes and old captions. One user pulled timestamps from her healing journey clips and laid them beside the memo. The thread blew up, with dozens of people chiming in, calling it one of the most calculated manipulations they'd seen. A few commenters pointed out how Delia had called her coaching program Reclaiming Your Story while openly bragging about rewriting someone else's. Others shared stories of influencers doing similar things. The thread became a warning, how easy it is to fake healing if you say the right things with the right filter. Delia's name trended locally for 3 days. Her family, the same ones who laughed behind my back, now started quietly deleting comments and locking down their profiles. No one apologized, but they were finally, for the first time, silent. After the voice memo leaked and the Reddit thread took off, Delia went quiet for almost a week. Then she came back with a new title in her bio, Reputation Recovery Coach. Her new offer? Crisis consulting for influencers. The rates were listed on a pink and gold Canva graphic, $599 for a 1-hour strategy call, but $2,500 for a full image repair package. She included a line about helping content creators rebuild their narrative after betrayal. The reactions were instant. Screenshots of the pricing made the rounds on Twitter, where people called it tone-deaf and ridiculous. Someone stitched her tearful video from the week before with clips of her new promo, captioning it, "From crying in the car to charging for clarity." Commenters flooded her page with clown emojis and snake memes. She deleted comments, but people just reposted everything elsewhere. While that was happening, I kept my moves quiet. I didn't respond, didn't mock, didn't even reference it. I had started working with a nonprofit that supports women leaving manipulative and high-control relationships. I wasn't their spokesperson, just someone helping behind the scenes, writing content, helping with grant applications, and connecting them to digital creators who actually cared about the mission. One of those creators had a small but thoughtful podcast and invited me to talk. I agreed, on the condition that we didn't discuss romantic betrayal. Instead, we focused on power imbalances in families, how loyalty can be twisted, and how silence can be used to protect the wrong people. The episode didn't explode online. It wasn't meant to, but it landed in the right circles. Delia didn't tag me, but she started subtweeting again. One post read, "Some people pretend to heal others while bleeding all over everything." Another said, "Philanthropy is the new mask for bitterness." She included photos of herself smiling in staged yoga poses and branded mugs that read "Resilient as hell." People weren't buying it anymore. Comments were dry. Engagement dropped. Then I got a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Liam's ex from college. She told me Delia had reached out to her too. Not recently, years ago after she and Liam had broken up. Delia had tried to get information from her, brought up my name, and made passive remarks about keeping tabs on me even back then. The pattern was starting to form, and now there were enough of us to connect the dots. I compiled a private timeline, dates, screenshots, posts, voice memos, DMs, public reactions, not for public use, just a living record of what had happened and when. I shared it with Jude and the woman from the college days. 2 more people reached out after that, both creators who had worked with Delia and cut ties quietly after seeing her behind-the-scenes behavior. We made a group chat. No plans for drama. Just support and shared notes. But having the full picture laid out changed everything. It wasn't just about what she did to me, it was a pattern of manipulation, rebranding, deflection, and monetizing chaos. Delia must have caught wind of the group chat, because a few days later she posted a shaky video on her stories. She called it addressing the bullying. She said a group of bitter people were trying to ruin her life, and that women should support women instead of forming whisper networks of jealousy. She cried halfway through the video, then tagged it with "Protect Your Energy" and deleted it 6 hours later. But by then, the damage had been done. Someone found old TikToks she'd posted during the height of her breakup brunch era. In one, she mocked women who cry over a man with a LinkedIn. In another, she wore a veil and toasted to leveling up while the exes drown in regret. People compared the tone of those clips to her recent tearful rants. Side-by-sides were everywhere. One of her brand partners, a skincare company, quietly removed her from their ambassadors page. No public statement, just a line in the comments saying, "We are currently re-evaluating our collaborations to align with our mission." Her followers noticed. Screenshots spread, then the podcast she co-hosted vanished from all platforms. Her name was wiped from the bio, and the remaining host posted a video thanking their audience for navigating tough transitions. Comments flooded in asking what happened. The host never explained, but people had already guessed. Meanwhile, my therapist encouraged me to keep focusing inward, to choose where I spend my time and energy. But she supported my decision to continue documenting everything, and to respond only when the strategy served my growth, not my ego. And then the final crack hit Delia's image harder than anything I ever could have planned. Her sister, who had stayed completely silent through everything, posted on her Instagram story. It was a black screen with white text. No tags, no photos. "I love my sister. But she's not the victim in this story." No other comment. No explanation. It stayed up for 24 hours, long enough for people to see it. Long enough to make it clear that even the people who knew her best weren't standing behind her anymore. A content accountability page on Instagram called Creator Reality Check dropped a video titled "Creators Who Got Caught," the Delia edition. They had over 500,000 followers, and the post started with clips of Delia's old TikToks, mocking sad exes and celebrating her rebirth after betrayal. Then they cut to the leaked voice memo, her Instagram captions from the breakup brunch era, and side-by-side quotes from her coaching program pitch. The edit was sharp, chronological, and packed with receipts. Within hours, the video hit 6 digits in views. Comments poured in. Some were people who had followed her from the beginning and said they'd started to doubt her months ago. Others dissected her brand language, showing how she recycled the same 10 phrases across interviews, captions, and podcast episodes. A few pointed out how her new reputation recovery page had gone silent just days before the video dropped. Delia tried to do damage control. She deleted over 60 old posts, scrubbed her tagged photos, and made her main account private. Then she posted a Notes app apology story. It was 5 paragraphs long, filled with phrases like "I've made mistakes," "narratives can be confusing," and "not everyone sees the whole picture." It never said what she did, never named what she was apologizing for. It ended with, "I choose growth over gossip." But the internet had already moved past that. Within an hour, people reposted her old videos and captions that directly contradicted her statement. One creator even stitched Delia's apology with her old "I'm the storm, not the victim" TikTok. Another edited her brunch footage with her new "I was manipulated to" narrative. Every attempt to reclaim the story ended up being used against her. I stayed out of it. While Delia was trying to erase her trail, I was launching a new project, Reclaiming Reality, when closure isn't an option. It was a writing series focused on betrayal recovery without needing validation from those who caused the pain. No names, no digs. Just strategies, stories, and reflection. I released it through my personal site and partnered with the same nonprofit I'd worked with earlier. Around the same time, I was invited to speak at a national digital wellness conference as a keynote speaker. They asked if I'd be willing to talk about online identity theft, not the financial kind, but emotional storytelling hijacked for personal branding. They wanted to feature my story as a real-world case of digital betrayal turned into empowerment. I agreed. Then Liam reached out again. His number had been blocked for a long time, but he sent a letter through my attorney's office. No legal reason, just a message asking to talk. No pressure, no guilt, just a request. I agreed. We met in a public cafe downtown, in the middle of the day with no one else around. He didn't try to defend what happened. He admitted Delia had twisted the truth even to him, said he hadn't realized how much of it was manipulation until he saw it unravel publicly. He told me his family had turned inward, questioning everything they'd accepted too easily. I listened. Then I thanked him for the apology but made it clear that some breaks don't get fixed. Trust, once shattered in betrayal, doesn't grow back. It just stays where it cracked. A few weeks later, another post started gaining attention. A former client of Delia's wrote a long thread about how Delia encouraged her to launch a smear campaign against her ex in order to build her own healing narrative. She said she'd been pressured to twist the story, script captions, and post proof to make herself more marketable. That one thread turned into a wave. The hashtag healing or hijacking started trending. Dozens of people began calling out similar coaches who profited off messy stories and weaponized victimhood for engagement. Delia's name showed up repeatedly. By the end of the week, her coaching site went down. Her payment platform, one that handles most influencer transactions, banned her account, citing community violations. She tried launching a backup account. It didn't last 24 hours. I finalized the sale of the house Liam and I once bought together. It took months to split the equity and close the deal, but I opted to downsize and use the remaining money to reinvest into Reclaiming Reality. I added free resources for women navigating digital conflict and launched a small local workshop to host real conversations, not filtered ones. At the first workshop, 12 women came. No cameras, no curated stories. Just space, to be honest. When we finished, one woman asked if I ever wished I had fought back sooner. I didn't answer right away. But then I told her I didn't need to fight back. I just needed to let her play until she ran out of moves. And she did.